Look at this video. Look at this Irish MP calling a spade, and what is highlighted. Nothing he says is factually wrong. It is all factual. These are truths that nobody will deny, not even Israel or US can deny, is the truth. Now, you hear this.
Simple question for you. How many innocent Palestinian civilians, men, women and children, does Israel have to slaughter? How many war crimes does Israel have to commit? How much death and destruction does Israel have to visit on the people of Gaza and Palestine before you will call for and impose sanctions on Israel and expel the Israeli ambassador from this country and call for the immediate referral of Israel to the International Criminal Court for crimes against humanity and war crimes? Because in front of the world, by their own admission, Israel is committing war crimes. They have stated it publicly. This isn't a matter of opinion. They declared their intention to force, through the threat of military bombardment, more than 1 million, and it is now well more than 1 million, Palestinians from their homes in northern Gaza and ethnically cleanse them. A crime against humanity. They stated publicly, and have done it in front of the eyes of the world, the intention to deny to 2.2 million people water, electricity, medicine, life-saving equipment in front of the eyes of the world, and they're doing it. And every minute, children are being slaughtered by their artillery, the relentless bombardment of residential complexes, of hospitals, of schools, of civilian infrastructure. They just go on and on and on, and you do nothing. Nothing. Words of concern, but no action to hold them to account. And it is clearly premeditated war crimes and genocide. Genocide. We have Jewish people in the United States and Canada, around the world, and Israel calling it genocide. Scholars, academics saying this is genocidal. Let me quote you a few things. Israeli general, quote, "Human animals must be treated as such. There will be no electricity and no water. There will only be destruction." Yoav Gallant, a minister, says we are fighting human animals. We will, quote, "act accordingly. We will remove, quote, every restriction on the IDF." Smotrich, another minister, there is no such thing as the Palestinians. The president of Israel refers to the people of Gaza and says they are all responsible. Before October the 7th, Netanyahu appeared in front of the UN General Assembly with a map of Israel that had removed all references to Palestine. A clear declaration of intent to destroy the Palestinian people and steal all of their land. 6,000 Palestinians killed between 2008 before October the 7th. Thousands of Palestinians hostage in administrative detention without trial. When are you going to move beyond words of concern and impose sanctions and expel the Israeli ambassador of this apartheid murderous state?
And this is happening right under UN watch. UN can say whatever is wrong, but UN doesn't have the will to impose any sanctions on anyone that does not have the consent of the 5 superpowers. US is clearly biased. They are a murderous state, just like Israel is. So they can do whatever they like. And any sanctions UN want to pass, even if everybody agrees, US can just veto. And there are 5 nations that can just veto, so therefore they can just stop the law from applying, the UN law from applying to any particular instance. So in other words, the rule applies sometimes, and sometimes the rule doesn't apply. The rule applies to certain people, but it doesn't apply to other people. the lever is controlled by the superpowers like US. And US has proven to be unfair and biased. So now, for all the countries in the world who are a member of the UN, what is the UN for? UN is what? To just record things happening? UN is to uphold the law? What law? The law doesn't apply equally to all. The law applies to some people and some not. The law applies sometimes but not at other times. So therefore, it's lawlessness. It's literally putting two parties in a fighting ring, putting on boxing gloves on both, but one entity has their hands and their feet tied, and the other one is free to swing. And you call that a match? So at the end of the day, for all the nations who are for justice and who sees the flagrant hypocrisy happening in UN, consider this. What are you in the UN for? What is the point? At the end of the day, isn't it better now? This is the thought. Everybody leaves UN, leave US and Israel in there, and Europe, the one that are promoting genocide, leave them in UN, create another world of nations, another body, and tak payah siapa-siapa ada veto power, and the rule should apply to all. The rule should apply to all, and that become the ruling body. Okay, so Russia, China, many other nations have exceeded might of military with the US and Israel. They can destroy these nations at will pun. So Russia, China, the BRICS nations should lead the path. Create another entity. Kalau nak kena ada Supreme Council pun, nak kena ada veto powers pun tak apa. But exclude US now. They are a defective nation. Exclude them, exclude Israel. If they want to join in, they join in as ordinary members. It's only. That's it. So therefore, that new entity can now be the enforcement body for the world. That can be the law. UN now is defunct. It doesn't work anymore. UN now is just used against the oppressed. No matter what, even if 90% of UN says there must be sanction on Israel, there will not be sanction. All it takes is just for US to say no, veto, done. So Israel can just do anything they like so long as they have support of US. US can do anything they like to any country as long as they have the veto power. So done. So even if you want to bitch about Russia attacking Ukraine, you want to put sanctions on Russia, that was not through UN. US implement that. They use that. They don't use. US also decide to not go through UN. Now they want to put sanctions on Malaysia on any entities, any countries that support Hamas. What the RPM says? RPM kata we don't recognize US punya unilateral sanction. Up to you to not recognize, but they can just do it. They will just do it. So at the end of the day, Malaysia will not follow likewise. But they can boycott Malaysia. They can cause harm to Malaysia. They can do this because they are big. So now it's time now that all the other countries who decide enough is enough with UN, we don't need the UN. UN for what? Who does it serve? It serves US and Israel. That's what UN does. That's what it's being used to do. Create something new. Russia and China should lead the pack. The Arab countries can be part of it. Let's have a new UN. Done. New UN with different rules. No more unfair rules. So that, there can be law and order in the planet so that we can avoid World War III. think about it. I do not know whether the world would listen, but consider this. Consider what is the most logical step after this.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share some of my thoughts regarding the Israeli genocide and occupation of Palestine and the regime's current efforts to fully consolidate its hold on Palestinian territories. In many ways, it is not something unexpected, at least in terms of Israel wanting to wipe out Palestinians and at the same time wipe Palestine off the map. However, despite efforts by Israel and its Western backers, from their governments to their media, to compartmentalize the current crisis as one sparked off by Hamas attacks on October the 7th, the rest of the world are fully aware that the attacks are at best an attempt to retaliate against the decades of genocide and atrocities committed by Israel. In many ways, the creation of Hamas and its retaliation and even its existence is a direct result of Israel's genocide and the tacit endorsement from the West, in particular the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, for those who support Israel, what do they expect from the Palestinians who had witnessed their grandparents, parents, children and babies murdered, raped, tortured, imprisoned and stripped of their dignity? Making it worse, global powers which wear morality and humanity on their sleeves turn a blind eye, or rather, in most instances, support, provide arms and fund and extend military backing. The atrocities committed on the Palestinians are generational, meaning that it had been committed on one generation to the next. They were witness to the inhumane treatment perpetrated on those before them, then for them to be subjected to such dehumanizing acts, then to again be witness of such cruelties committed on their next generation. Ladies and gentlemen, I know I'm repeating myself and that of others, but it has to be made clear that Israel is an occupier and Palestine is the occupied. It is not too difficult a concept to understand. Any occupier is evil, and the occupied, when they stand up against the occupiers, are heroes, liberating, and they are freedom fighters. Do not forget Nelson Mandela, Ho Chi Minh, Subhash Chandra Bose, Che Guevara, Michael Collins, Jose Rizal, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and even Malaysia's Malay nationalists. They were labeled rebels and terrorists and were killed or subjected to the worst kind of atrocities by the occupiers and colonialists. But upon the independence of their nations, they were heralded as heroes and liberators of their land. Ladies and gentlemen, what Palestine and in fact the rest of the world is seeing is a new round of colonialism. If we watch closely, what had happened to Iraq, Afghanistan, and even Ukraine is colonialism or their proxies at work. Invasions and aggressions are justified as efforts to counter terrorism and militancy, but we know they were mere camouflage to hide their lust for oil and territory apart from their love for war. The West, the US, and its lapdog ally, the United Kingdom, lie and misled their people into supporting their wars. The lie about the weapons of mass destruction is testimony to the extent of their deception and propaganda to justify their aggression, and the results were the murders of millions of innocent Iraqis. Without remorse or shame, new leaders who had taken over the rule of these belligerent nations, now support Israel's genocide of Palestinians and inevitably Israel's effort to take over whatever is left of the Palestinian land. Simply put, the US and UK and their Western backers are assisting Israel to conclude their colonization of Palestine. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been asked, surely the leaders of US and UK, leading nations of democracy and human rights, could not be that evil in their considerations. I cannot fathom their inner thoughts, but I can assess what they do, and I do believe that they are only concerned with democracy and human rights if and when it serves their interests. We have to understand that these leaders inherit nations that were founded on colonialism or seizure of other people's land. The United Kingdom thrived on colonialism, and they gave up their colonies not from the goodness of their hearts. Hence, the behavior of their leaders, including one whose forefathers were victims of British colonialism, continues to be that of colonialists. The US is definitely a settlers' colony in which Native Americans were ethnically cleansed by the settlers. What the US settlers did to the Native Americans are no different than that being committed by the Israelis on the Palestinians. The UK government, though merely a lapdog of the US, have delusions of the glory of their colonial past. Hence, its preparedness to see genocide being committed on a people without any compassion. What is being committed is merely an extension or replication of what it used to inflict upon the peoples living in their empire. As for Israel, it is a colonial settler, and with the US, UK, and other former imperialist nations supporting it, commits the worst kind of crimes against humanity, wantonly and with impunity. Each and every one of them has had blood on their hands, and they now lust for more. Thank you.
If you want to see more content like this, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so you don't miss any new videos.